Yeah, look, every day that they see me, they like, what's up, dude? I tell them not much, but we know it's not true. Got a to-do list that every day I gotta run through. I don't wanna small talk about it, let the work talk for me. I don't tell nobody about my secrets. Keep it to myself, cause nowadays they wanna leak it. I don't even share it with my family as of recent. Not cause I don't trust them, I would rather let them see it for themselves. I got insecurities, I don't wear them on my sleeve, so you know I gotta keep them on the shelf. Like awards I don't have yet. And every second that I wasted talking about it is a second I can have back. Look, I don't wanna tell them everything I'm gonna do. I would rather show them everything that I achieved. I don't wanna tell them that I got it with no proof. I would rather show them the receipts. I find it funny how they say you gotta talk less and do more. When I rap, I talk more and do more.
All right, welcome everybody to another edition of the Real Capital Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jared Halsey, and we have an exciting guest across from me today, somebody that I've grown to know and love, and every time we get together, we have a great conversation. So I said, as soon as I get a little bit of experience behind my belt at talking, recording, doing a podcast, I was going to have him on, along with another list of people that I don't want to put on here when I don't know what the crap I'm doing. So I know a little bit of what I'm doing today, so here we are. We're going to give it a shout. So I'm going to do a quick rundown, introduction. I'm going to throw it over to the man himself. So this guy has his hands in so many things, from real estate with his multifamily and single-family homes to construction on brand new tiny homes. He's a dedicated husband and father, as well as an entrepreneur, with he and his wife's most recent venture being a coffee business that does mobile and brick-and-mortar shops. I can say that through many personal conversations that we have had, he's the type of guy that has an answer to just about every problem that comes up. He looks at his business through a microscope and solves problems not only as they arise, but even beforehand. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Eric Rowell to Real Capital Podcast. How's it going, man?
Hey, good to be here, man.
All right, so
excited.
Give me a little, if nobody knows who in the world you are, give me a little rundown of, Eric, who he is today, how you got here.
Oh, man. So where to start? I got to live up to all those things that you just said about me. First of all, make sure I hit all those bullet points. But yeah, I mean, pretty much, I'm just a simple dude, and I like to do all the things at once. Yeah. I don't really like to put labels on myself, but, I'm definitely that person who enjoys having multiple projects, going on. I always like to be doing something. Me and my wife, we've been together forever, it seems like. Yeah. But we met in high school. We had a kid really young, and then we just kind of enjoyed, moving around and doing things.
Who was Eric back in his 20s? So early 20s. I'm not sure how long you've been married or when you got married, but who was Eric Rowell in his 20s? So what were you doing? Did you have a business? Were you in business? Were you in college? Talking early 20s. What were you into? Because I'm trying to tie it all into how in the world we got to Eric right now. You know what I mean? So who was Eric in his 20s?
So, I mean, pretty much whenever I was in my 20s, it was a dark time for me. I was trying to figure out who I was. I was going through a lot of things in my life. Basically, I would say probably one of the things, occupational wise, it was a little bit of everything. My grandfather, he was a construction person, so he owned a construction company. So pretty much like I mentioned, I kind of had a kid at a young age. So I kind of got to the point where I wanted to start working and everything, not necessarily, doing the typical thing, get out of high school and then go to college. Decided, hey, I need to make a little bit of money and kind of figure out what I wanted to do, because honestly, I had no clue. It was a lot of, trial and error, and I want to do this, but I'm not exactly sure what path I want to go down.
So you were working in construction then to start out, doing like the manual labor? You more like in charge of stuff, or?
So yeah, my grandfather, he owned the construction company. So it didn't matter, what grade I was in, probably from middle school on. Every summer, we pretty much did some type of construction, go work for him for a summer job, that type of thing. So, by the time I got to my 20s, running a construction crew, doing that, and probably did that for, I don't know, a few years, 2 or 3 years once I got out of high school. But I think, probably most people, they don't want to do, like my kid, he doesn't want to do whatever his parents are doing. Yeah. So like I had to try to figure out ways.
You want to make your own way in life.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, basically I really wasn't wanting to do that. So it was, I went into law enforcement. That was my next step, because
you said that one time when we were talking. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. Wow, that just threw me for a loop. Eric the cop.
I know, dude.
It's just so like, I mean, like I can see it, but it's just like not what I see you doing now. It's crazy.
So I mean,
and how was that though? Like what like just like spur of the moment, or did you see something you're like,
Pretty much in high school I was in ROTC. And, I enjoy discipline and structure in my life. So I ultimately wanted to do military or something like that. Yeah. I knew that, like, I enjoyed that. However, like I said, I had a kid at a young age. So me and my wife, it was the whole time, a lot of people was getting sent to Iraq and everything. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to take that chance because, I got my wife and then my new kid. So I said, well, what's the next best thing? As I'm simultaneously working in the construction industry, just because it's familiar and I've done it every single summer. Yeah. So I'm in that, but also craving something like the military structure and those type of things. So the next best thing was law enforcement.
Yeah. It pushes you.
Yeah.
It pushes you mentally and physically and.
Right, exactly. Those things, and like I'm a highly competitive person, right? Yeah. So it gave me a way to, exercise that part of, my drive. So ultimately, I went into law enforcement and done that for about 4 years. The crazy thing is while I'm doing law enforcement and kind of focusing on that, I'm also on a motorcycle stunt team. So we kind of traveled around and did shows like at monster truck shows and things like that. We were big into street bikes, and it was a little bit crazy enforcing the law for people that are riding wheelies on the streets, and then me going to get paid to do it. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
So and that's something I've always thought was the fun, appealing part to me of the military, because I've always thought about going into the military. Yeah. I knew I wanted to get married young. I knew I wanted to have a kid young. I knew I wanted to go ahead and get those things done, because I guess my goal was I didn't know anything about it, making money, but I wanted to make money early. I wanted to have my kid early. I wanted to get married early, get through all that. That any married couple will tell you the first couple of years of being married is usually some of the toughest years. Yeah. So like you fight a lot. You're trying to get used to this person. You've been together a couple of years, and then things hadn't really gotten better. So then you fight a lot more, and then you finally get to a point where you've grown together, and the fights still come, but they're way less frequent than obviously when I was first married. At least that's been my experience. So, and the experience around me. But the thing about the military is having that several year commitment was just not in the cards for me. I didn't want to commit, because you're stuck. You're stuck there wherever they want to send you. But I used to love to watch the behind the scenes in the Marines and the SEALs and stuff. And I'm like, man, I would pay money just to sign up and go do training. How cool that would be.
If we could just stop there.
Yeah, if we could just stop there. Like, can I do it? Like, I want to push myself. Can I run with that backpack? Can I climb those things? Can I jump off into that water? Except for maybe the Navy SEALs, because I'm not. You're not going to drown me in a swimming pool. It's not worth it. Everything else though.
There, except for jumping on the planes. That's the thing that scares me.
You've never skydived?
No.
I'm not at sea, and you just got back from Seattle, and we'll get into some of that stuff too later on. But see, I've never even been on a plane. Like I'm heights, just period. I'm terrified of them. So I'm gonna have to make a bunch of money and get like a private jet. Will be the first time I fly. I don't know. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge. If Vladimir Putin calls me and said, "I want you to interview me," I might have to fly to Russia or something. Do RCP Russia. But so real estate. That's where I think me and you have the most in common. So that was one of the biggest reasons why I want to get you here. When did you first purchase anything or have any kind of dealings in real estate investment at all? What kind of year, how long was that? And like, what was that first deal?
Yeah. So first real estate deal, I would say probably started in 2017. 2017 is whenever I bought my property in Opp. And crazy thing is, like, I tell everybody, they're like, how did you get to this little small town called Opp? And I'm like, do you remember when Craigslist was, kind of popular before Facebook Marketplace and everything? And they always go like, yeah, I remember that. And I'm like, well, I'm just scrolling through Craigslist one day and I found this property that was really cheap. And at that time, we were living in Omaha, Nebraska. And we were already kind of thinking like, hey, we're a little bit too far from family because we're originally from Mississippi and we can't jump in the vehicle and go drive. I can't take my kid to go see his grandmother or anything like that. So we wanted to get closer. So as I was scrolling through Craigslist and I'm like, man, there's 20 acres that we could buy over here in this place called Opp. Who knows what Opp is, Yeah. But it's such a good deal. I go back to my wife and I'm telling her about it and I'm like, hey, maybe we should just jump on this, and buy it. And even if it doesn't pan out to be anything, we can use it to go hunting or, go down there and go camping or whatever the case may be. And I finally talked her into it and got her on board with it. And we pulled the trigger. We actually bought the property sight unseen. We didn't drive down here or anything like that. So that was my first real estate deal. And it was, again, a blend of me wanting to own something, but have something that's a conveniency to visiting family.
Yeah.
Right.
And so with that was just land. There was no house,
just land,
no structures.
Yeah.
And so how long after that before you guys bought a house and said, I'm gonna live over here?
So we actually, probably about 6 months later, it was still in 2017, we come down, we visited the place, and we was like, hey, man, this actually is a really nice spot.
Yeah.
And then we started moving some things around. We had some investments and 401ks and some other assets that we sold, and we was like, okay, well, let's take these things, liquidate them, and then just build a house right here on this land. So probably about 6 months later, we started construction. Again, my background kind of being in that.
Yeah.
And then also my grandfather, 3 hours away from Mississippi, he was like, yeah, if you want to do this project, we'll come over and help you and everything. So that's kind of how that ball got rolling.
Well, that's super. And so with those 20 acres, did you parcel them out and sell them? Did you sell them all? Do you still have those in your portfolio?
No, we actually liquidated those. The 20 acres was 3 parcels, divided. But when it was actually around the pandemic time, I forget when it was, 2021, 2020, something like that. Yeah. Basically, when real estate just shot straight up, we was like, okay, well, my wife already wanted to move because what we built on that property was a 1,200 square foot house. We have 1 kid, so it was just a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, very simple house plan. And she's like, hey, I'm ready to upgrade. And okay, I was like, all right, we can take and rent this property out and get X, or we can sell it and then just roll all of that money and build a new property. Because at that time, what was that, 4 years ago or whatnot, at that time in my investment, I was like, hey, I need to pay cash for everything. I don't like debt. I avoided debt at all costs. Now I'm at the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's good to learn to get to the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So I think for most people, they probably need to look at things and be very terrified of debt until you can learn how to understand it.
Oh, yeah.
I had a guy text me, a young guy text me that I know, and he wants to get into real estate, and I had sat down with him. I was like, look, you need to listen to this audiobook, and then start reading as much as you can about real estate. It really doesn't even matter. Just start reading books. Like if you want a preference, like text me, I'll tell you what to read next if you want to. But he did Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he had some questions about that, money's fake, they're printing it, why would you save it, all this good stuff from that whole concept of that. But he texted me the other day, a week or so ago, and he's like, so credit cards, like I got approved for my first credit card, and like, what's your opinion on credit cards and how to use them and everything like that? And I'm like, basically, no millionaire got to where they are off of credit card points. And my point being is, do not put a whole lot of emphasis on those right now, because they're not going to do you any good. That 2% cash back you're going to get for that candy bar and soda, like, filling up your gas tank $30-$40, it's not going to get you anywhere right now. Learn how to manage those now, keep debt off of them now, so that when you get to that point where your business is doing, 20, 30,000 recurring revenue you're spending on supplies or whatever every single month. Right. Now all of a sudden you're getting 2%, 3%, 4% cash back on $30,000 a month that you're paying off every month. Now you're using credit cards to your advantage. Right. But the point is learn how to use that debt. Kind of Dave Ramsey in the beginning. Yeah. Learn how to manage, and then once you got to graduate. Graduate from that, and then you can learn, and that's how you really, really scale. Right. None of these major businesses are billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar businesses that they don't carry any debt. They have debt. They use debt to build and scale. Right. So apart from that, so that was your first real estate transaction. Kind of got it, built it, turned it into some money, got out of it a few years later or so. What was your first rental property?
First rental property. Let's think. I think it was the house that I have. I basically bought a house from a guy that come in. I was working currently at a peanut mill as a safety manager, and one of the reps come in, and he was doing a contractor work, and he just was in my office one day and told me about a deal that he had a carpet cleaning business. Yeah. And then he told me about this person that he went in their house and started cleaning their carpet. And he was like, yeah, they were selling this house really cheap. And at that time, it just kind of sparked interest. And I was like, well, what's cheap to you? You know what I mean? Your cheap might not be my cheap. And he just kind of having conversation. And then one thing led to another. And I'm like, man, why don't you, if you're not going to do that deal, why don't you pass it along to me or whatnot? And so we, followed up with the lead and called them. And next thing you know, we made an offer on the property. Again, it's just some cash that we kind of had from the previous sale, and then remodeling the home that we're currently in. And then there was some cash left over, and we was like, okay, how do we grow this cash? And then that's when I was having that conversation with that contractor about that property, and then followed up with the lead and made the deal. And just really went in there and put a little bit of lipstick on it, some paint, fresh paint, just made it look a little bit better. And then threw it. I always like to have multiple, deals come through, like exit strategies, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And when I did it, I said, all right, well, let's list this thing for sale. Yeah. Owner financing, and then let's list it on Zillow for sale and Facebook Marketplace for rent. So we just pushed it all out there, bro. You know what I mean?
You're calling about the house. Okay, where'd you see it at?
Yeah, exactly. And it was our first one. And again, we paid cash for it. And ultimately we was like, hey, let's see what deal we can get. What's the best deal we can get for this property? Yeah. And that's kind of how we did it. And
what did you end up doing with it?
So we wind up doing owner financing. Okay. And since then, I've learned now that I have, rental properties, owner finance properties, multi-family properties, I learned that the owner finance properties is where I want to be. Yeah.
I agree 100%.
You can be doing a million things, but there are certain things that's going to bring you closer to your goals faster. Right.
I mentioned that we had, I don't know if we were recording, we did it or not, but that me and Devin, we were riding with a gentleman. He was showing us some properties, and I asked him how he got started. He got started in rental properties back in the early 70s in land with $1,700 in the bank. Yeah. And he went to an auction, and he got a bunch of land, financed through a bank, had to stop in the middle of the auction. They cut for lunch, and there was some land left. And he's like, I think I can get more than what I thought. So he went to some podunk gas station, got the payphone, called the banker on a Saturday, and he's like, hey, I think for a little bit more than you said I could spend, I could get this. And the guy's like, okay, do it. As soon as Monday comes, I'll extend your thing so you can buy it. So he bought it, he parceled it out, and he owner financed lots. And that was 40-something years ago, and he still has multiple lots. Wow. Still on his portfolio, owner financed, where somebody would come in, they'd purchase the property, they would put a septic tank and water and lights, and then they'd put a mobile home or an RV, and maybe they would move. Something would happen. They'd go across country, military or whatever, and then they would call him and be like, hey, and he was like, okay, well, I'll take it back. No problem. And it's one property, he just resold it again for the 4th time, and he bought this 40-something years ago. Yeah. I love the idea of of owner financing because I think that owning your own home is important. I've read Chris Crone. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he does real estate. It's over 10,000 deals he's done, single family. Yeah. And that's what he does is he purchases properties, does whatever he needs to do to them. He will put somebody in it, owner finance it for 5 years. During that 5 years, he's helping them. He's introducing them to a bank, introducing them to a loan officer, helping them with their credit, and has goals for them to be able to take it off his hands in 5 years.
Right.
So he makes money, holds it for a short amount of time, and then in that meantime, he has no maintenance, he has no taxes, he has no nothing. They've got insurance, maintenance, taxes, everything covered.
Yep.
And they get to own the home. So typically when you own home versus rent, you're going to take way better care of it.
100%.
You're going to be more worried about putting dents in the walls or scuffing up the floor and stuff. So you get better tenants that way too. But you got to have the money to do that too. You know, to owner finance it because it's a lower payment than what if you went out there and rented it for. So you got to be able to carry that water. I want to get there. That's a big goal of mine. So, so you paid cash for that deal.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So what's a deal? Tell me about a deal that you financed. Do you have?
So my multifamilies and my townhomes that I have currently in my portfolio, those are all financed. They were actually my first finance deals. Yeah. And, it was going back to kind of like my original deal that we just talked about. Basically, it's like, hey, I want more of these after you see the income that's coming in. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, how do I go out and find more? Well, just like you said, you got to have the capital to do that. And you only have so much capital, right, in your bucket. And if you expand it all on one or two deals, now you got to go figure out how to leverage the bank. Mm-hmm. And so that's exactly what we did. Basically, we seen that this investment that we bought, the first one, was positive. We enjoyed it. We liked it. And we was like, okay, well, now let me go over here and figure out how to scale that in a sense. Yeah. And so it actually, a lot of my stuff was not really skimming through Zillow or Marketplace or anything like that. It's honestly just like my real estate has evolved just like my business has. And that is by networking. You know what I mean? Putting myself in the right rooms.
Your net worth is your network.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say that a while back and it's been so true. Yeah. So true for me.
Definitely, dude. I mean, so those deals basically came through. Again, I'm just having a conversation with somebody like we're having, and he's like, man, I have these properties that I've been having for 10 years. I got it foreclosure, and they're all just a headache, and then like my bell starts going off. Well, if it's your headache, then you're trying to offload it, what kind of deal can I get here? So, one conversation led to two and three, and it's like, by the end of it, I bought his whole portfolio, which was 6 doors, a fourplex and then 2 townhomes. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like I couldn't, I didn't have the capital to just buy what he was asking for it. Yeah. So I had to get creative and, figure out how I can leverage the bank. And the way that I did that is I basically had my real estate portfolio and fund that was coming in from the other property. I never really touched that. It was just sitting in a fund. And I don't remember how much it was, maybe like 10 grand or something like that at this time. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I went to the bank, I structured the deal and went and talked to my loan officer. And I was like, hey, here I've got this really great deal. I'm going to have, equity in the homes as soon as I buy them. How do I do it? He's like, well, you need 15%. I'm like, I'm doing the calculations on the back of my napkin, I'm like, I ain't got 15%, I think we may have had like 10%. So we just really started learning. Bigger Podcast was a super valuable resource for me. Yeah. I started diving into all of the material that they have, and I learned that,
Did you read the How to Purchase Real Estate with Little to No Money by Brandon Turner?
I didn't read the book, but I'm pretty sure I got all the cliff notes through his podcast. You know what I mean?
I love his podcast.
Yeah. It was super valuable though.
He's actually Brandon Turner and Graham Stephan are the 2 people that I started watching first on YouTube. Yeah. And those are 2 idols of mine when it comes to just the way they think and the way they've done things.
100%.
But so I love Brandon Turner.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you get it less than 15% down?
So basically, I went back to the seller and was like, hey, this house needs XYZ, and we're going to negotiate that off of the payment price. So basically, we put in there, he's going to give me a credit for XYZ.
Bring it to closing.
Right, yeah. Bring it to closing. And then
yeah.
at the end of the day, it all kind of got washed. And then I fixed XYZ later on down the road versus at the front end.
One of my favorite, when I was a real estate agent, which I still am, but when I was practicing real estate agent, I should say, it makes me sound fancy. It makes me sound like a doctor. Like when I was practicing, but I would have people come to me and they're like, listen, I love this home. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to pay for the home? Yeah. And they're like, well, I don't think they're asking that bad of a price. I'd really like to get it maybe, $10,000 more or whatever. And I'm like, well, you got to figure out, when you're a real estate agent, you got to figure out what your clients need. What's their problem? Is it the down payment? Is it the monthly payment? Is it the purchase price? So a lot of times it's the down payment with anybody. Right. It's the down payment. And even when they say, oh, you get those 3.5% down payments, with this FHA loan or this whatever loan, look, even with VA loans, they've got points and charges and fees that could amount to thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, depending on the home. So you want to make sure that you're covered as much as possible, because to get a closing statement from the bank early on is not going to be very accurate. They're going to throw some random numbers at you. And you can, like FHA, VA loans and stuff like that, like an appraisal can cost $900 to $1,000 or more, depending on the home, because to be certified in FHA, not every appraisal can do it. So what I would go in there and do, and I would say, okay, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we offer them, if you're okay with the purchase price and you're okay with the monthly payment and your problem is the down payment, come in there, let's offer them. If they're asking $100,000, we'll offer them $100,000, and then ask them to bring $10,000 to closing. Yeah. That way, you're giving them purchase price, but you're technically you're offering them $10,000 less. So instead of offering them 90, which the difference between 90,000 and 100,000, when you say a 10% down, is $1,000. That ain't save you much. That's still $9,000 you got to come up with if it's 10% down, just for easy numbers. So you come in there and say, well, look, if it's a 20% down payment, I'm going to give you 90. I'm going to give you 100. So they're going to get a check for 100. So they're going to turn around and write me a check. They're not even going to write it. The closing attorney is going to write it for $10,000, which is going to go towards my down payment. So now all of a sudden I go from having to put $20,000 down if it's a 20% to $10,000 down if it's 20% down conventional loan. So I like doing stuff like that. I've done that with my deals. And then there's also, you can ask the seller to hold the down payment as a secondary mortgage for a short period of time, 24 months, 48 months, 60 months, whatever. But there's loads and loads of different strategies that I learned. So were you getting 15, 20, 30-year mortgages on there? What you remember what the year?
Yeah, so few of them, those particular properties I did 20 years.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so that's just your normal conventional type loan. That's what I get on most of my properties. Yeah. It's typically with your real estate investing and stuff like that. That's, a lot of people will go and get 30-year mortgages and stuff like that, but you're capped off with how many of those you can get. A lot of people don't know. Like most banks, they're going to say, oh, you have 10 loans, 30 years stretched out. Like they're going to say, okay, we're not, you've great credit, you got money, but we're not going to give you another one of those. So I like to do, I got with a small bank here in Dozier, and they do portfolio lending. So they keep them all on the books. So I have a maximum indebtedness to the bank, an infinite amount of loans. So I won't be capped off. No, but the caveat to that is the 20 years is max that I can go typically on those. Right. So, but I've had good deals, and I haven't had to go. A lot of my deals are 15 years. They're just not that much money, and we can cash flow. Yeah. All right, now, turning around, we got the real estate covered. What got you into business, and what pushed you to start? Because that's the hardest thing. Everybody wants to start a business. Everybody's got an idea. What got you into business as entrepreneur, and then what pushed you there to start? I'm assuming that Grit and Grind was your first real business. I mean, you may have had other businesses in your life. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, as far as real business, besides flipping cars on Craigslist, you know what I mean? Definitely real business. It was the first one. Yeah. I would say what got me started. Let's see. real estate, going back to that, you see the positive things that come from real estate and you're like, okay, I like this.
Technically, that was a business.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it just wasn't
True.
like you just they weren't serving like, selling products. You're just a landlord, but it's still a business.
100%. And I would probably not be in the coffee business if the housing inventory wasn't what it was at the time I started the business. So I would say that's a key indicator of why I got into this. It's basically...
So be fluid. Shift.
Yeah,
you need to
exactly.
Shift. Don't be stuck on one thing.
Yeah. That's a big part of our success, I believe, is we will pivot in a heartbeat.
You've kind of went into like why coffee with me before. We've talked, but like for people who don't know, why go into coffee in that small little Alabama, where no way Starbucks would touch that town. No way, Dunkin' Donuts would touch that town. They don't have enough houses, rooftops, medium household income. But you guys jumped in and started in a trailer.
Yeah.
Started in a food trailer to start out. So what made you say coffee? That's it. That's what I'm doing.
I mean, so there was no properties, and it's like, okay, where do I invest my money? And, we started doing some research and going down this rabbit hole of like, all right, we have this bucket of money. I need to grow it. And then that's ultimately where it led me to the idea of trying to figure out what vehicle I wanted to put it in. So we're looking around and was like, what does our town need? Like, what do we not have at every corner?
Yeah.
And that ultimately took us to mobile food trucks, and that whole avenue was like, okay, we can figure out a need. And we was ultimately thinking about something like healthy, right? We wanted like a clean food in the town because there was none of that. Yeah. And so we started spending a lot of time researching that. And then we kind of, the more we learned the profit margins on coffee versus food. Yeah. And then as soon as we learned that metric, it was like, okay, completely shift our mindset. I like the mobile concept and the mobile food just because of the fact that I can prove my concept without investing, a large chunk of change. I can, be 50 grand versus 250 grand into a business. So it was definitely needed to be something mobile. And then again, going back to food versus coffee, it was really, a profit margin thing is how we initially got started because, we go back and really the main objective was how do we grow this bucket of money? And in our minds, it was real estate. So it shifted to the mobile coffee, and that's kind of how we got into that, and that was a start.
And that's how me and you met at the beginning because I had Smash Mouth Foods and we had a location in Opp, and I remember hearing there's a coffee trailer coming to Opp, and I remember the first thing I thought is, holy freaking cow, that is a great idea. Yeah, I'm like, my God, a coffee trailer, that is incredible. What an amazing idea. And I knew, I'm like, it's gonna be a hit. And then you had come by to get some food or do something, probably get some food at our trailer in Opp. You were Destiny One. I think it was you at the time. And my dad had met you. And somehow he got to talking about real estate. Or my dad called me. He's like, hey, you need to get up with this guy. Like, he's in real estate too. Right. Like, he's got the coffee trailer and he's in real estate. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely I do. So that's when I'm like, and I'm going to call them and tell them they can come over to Andalusia with their trailer. And like, anytime you want to set up over here, like come over here, test the waters. But y'all were so busy. Yeah. I mean, you were swamped where you were every single day, just doing great. And absolutely. And so then I remember, and this goes back to net worth being your network being your net worth. Yeah. Saying who you know and how you know them it can determine a lot of times how much you're worth or how much you're going to be worth. I told my wife for the longest time, I'm like, we got to sit down and have dinner with them. I'm going to invite them to go out to eat. We're going to go get a steak or something like that. I've never done that before, by the way. Never to a random person been like, hey, we've spoke on the phone a couple of times. Let me buy you a meal, which, everyone should do. Everyone should do. So I sat there, used my business card, which is my real estate, which is Halsey Capital, and I said, we're going to buy this. So it was, I don't know, $180, whatever it was. We all got steaks, met. We talked for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was great. We've had conversations since then. Fast forward a year and a quarter, a year and a half or something like that. And that one, I attribute that one steak, basically that one dinner to when you had a business thing with Amazon. Yeah. And you were thinking, they're like, we need somebody in Andalusia. And you're like, I know who I can call. and you called me, and whether or not you called other people or not doesn't matter to me. The point is, I've turned that into 3 Amazon routes and a 4th one coming on in April.
Yeah.
I've also been able to walk away from my daily food trailer because of that. So, you know, one steak for $150 turned into what will be, you know, let's see, $140-something thousand a year in Amazon routes, you know? So
that's awesome.
I appreciate that,
dude.
you know, and so, but I mean, that's just the point. Like, reach out to people, learn, grow, you know, no matter who they are. I didn't know who you were. You know, I just knew you had real estate. I knew you had a business. I knew that's what I'm doing. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to reach out and learn from somebody with that. Now, next question, why not be satisfied with op? Why not be satisfied with making your money? You know, you invested a little bit. Maybe I'll jump back in real estate. You know, whatever. It's making money. Let's get somebody in there and we can walk away. Why not be satisfied with that? Why? You've got a massive drive, it looks like, to turn Grit and Grind into a, you know, a Starbucks, a nationwide thing, certainly a regional thing. I know you've got one in, was it Utah?
Yeah.
Opening up, I saw.
That's
so,
next month, yeah.
Yeah, so why? What pushed you to that? Or was it kind of like, I can't help it?
No, I think me and my wife, we're very opposites on a lot of things, but we're very similar on a lot as well. And it's a community thing for us. You know what I mean? We just find joy and happiness in providing opportunities for other people. Like, you don't understand like how, you know, good that makes me feel that basically deal where I picked up the phone and called you and said, hey, you got this deal, you know, and I didn't think nothing of it. Like, I just basically was like, hey, who thinks like this and who could this be beneficial for? And those type of things is what we get up every day for, is basically providing, you know, this really cool opportunity for others. And, you know, it's a community thing. So we basically had an opportunity where we were going to consult with somebody on how to open up a coffee trailer. And then by the time we had 2 or 3 conversations with them, they turned into our first licensee and opened up the other, you know, Grit and Grind location. Yeah. And then, so it all happened very organically. It wasn't really something where we had a plan to just scale this thing from the beginning. Yeah. One location turned into 2 locations, 3 locations. Now I think we're at like 9 locations, and everything's been straight up by me networking, meeting someone, walking in the door, you telling this person, and us, you know, kind of communicating.
Well, we live in such an antisocial society. Yeah. You know, there's so many people who are just like, they don't want to go out. They don't want to meet people. They don't want to shake hands. They don't want to do those deals, you know. But after I met you, hold on one second. Hello? Hello? I thought something was wrong. My dad's calling me. He's butt dialing me. I'm like, if my dad's calling me and he's right there and my wife is here, something bad has happened. Bro, I'm like, something bad has happened. No, he's just a talking. He butt dialed me. Jesus. Anyways, what was I saying now? What did I say, Devin? No.
I'm focused on your dad, bro. Yeah. From the network. I think we're talking about the courage to, like, you know.
Yeah. So there's so many people out there that, and you don't even have to edit that out. That's just funny. I just, my face, I'm like, oh my God, something
wait till your dad watches that.
I know, right? But yeah, like, so I, after the first time I ever randomly called somebody, like, I want to take you guys out to dinner. You know, I want to meet you guys. And y'all ended up being great people. And, you know, it would have sucked if it had been like, you know, oh, can we get away from them, you know? Right. But you take that chance. You go out there, you meet somebody, and you're like, I think that's the type of person I want to be. Those are the type of people I want to be around. You emulate who you're around. You know, you're 100%. You know, you're you know, you don't want to be the highest salary of the closest 5 people to you. You know what I mean? Like, you want to get in front of somebody who's like way above you. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, shoot, like, that year, I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I'm meeting people. Now, I only did it 3 times, but it was you. I met with John Tomerlin, business guy. I'd love to have him on here. Super, super knowledgeable guy. When it comes to business, he just spitting crap out. Right. I called him. I'm like, I want to take you to coffee. So we went to coffee. We spoke for 2 hours. And then Andy Gibson with Draftstone Properties. I mean, the guy's doing multifamily deals like crazy. He's got real estate like crazy. He's got land clearing business, other businesses, partnerships. He's got the real estate, thing that he's growing. And, he's such a humble guy. He's basically came at me like, I don't know what I got to teach you, dude. But I'm like, dude, like, I'm here and you're like way up here. And it's the same thing. That's why I want to have you on the podcast, is because what you're doing with your business and stuff, I don't want to build a business specifically like that and scale it like that, but I will eventually have other businesses that will scale, that will do what you will do. And I want somebody like you so that I can talk to, that I can keep that relationship, that open line of communication, and then getting out and meeting people. And it's tough when you got small kids. It's tough when you're working 9 to 5 and you're working all the time. Work. But it's important to get out there, make time, say, hey, my name is Jared Halsey. I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee, man. It looks like you're doing some things that I'd like to do, and I don't know anybody in that space. And maybe we can chat for 30 minutes, and who knows, I can get some advice from you about it. Yeah. And people like that. Like it's a humbling thing. Like I've had people come to me before, and I'm like, dude, like, I got folks that I look up to. You're coming to me, like, right. I'll do the best I can. But then you start doing that, and, I love talking to folks. You have any questions, anything like that? But that's what we need more of. We need people to reach out because, look, I mean, once I make that first $1 million, $2 million, $100 million, I'm always going to come back to I'd still be at a food trailer if Eric hadn't called me. And, I mean, that's huge for me. So, I mean, just that little thing of, I wasn't thinking much of it. Jared's into all this. I know he'd probably jump on something like this. First thing when I talk to Chris, Neil, Jocelyn, Sandy, all of them, Noli now, I tell every single one of them, I want 10 routes. I'm not going to stop till I get 10. They're like, well, you got to have it's got to be one per business. And I'm like, I got that, bro. Yeah. Like, help me get to 10. Yeah. I want to get to 10. And they always laugh when they say that. And every now and then, I'll just call one of them on the phone and be like, "Look, if you have any, like, do you need another like DSP or something? Like, I'll go get some Ryder trucks. We'll go get a contract and we'll start delivering to these hubs. Yeah. Like I'm always looking for more, how to grow, how to jump into that kind of stuff. So,
well, before we leave today, I might have another hub to put on you.
There you go. Yeah. So let's see. What advice would you give someone wanting to start their first business?
So it kind of goes back to some of the points that we've been talking about. Yeah. Number one thing is have courage. Like, courage is probably one thing that I will basically contribute to a lot of my success. Just like what you're talking about, calling me and let's set up a dinner and go do that, picking up the phone and calling other people. Like, a lot of people I've talked to and noticed, like, they get in their heads, and when they get in their heads, they allow that to stop action. But I've found that if I just have the courage to reach out to people, and I mean, it doesn't matter if it's cold calling or whatever it is, just reach out. All they can do is say no, right? And you start working on that network, then it's going to pay dividends, because it doesn't matter what deal you're doing. You got to have like the right formula to try and analyze any deal that you're going to do, right? So if you don't know all of the pieces to plug in, and a lot of people, they look at a deal very directly, like, okay, how much money can I bring in and how much is it going to produce, right? Versus the long-term effects, like that steak dinner, that's what I would put in a deal that I'm structuring, right? I'm going to analyze that. That's an indirect, contribution that is going to ultimately grow this deal, whatever it looks like. So having all of those things, courage to do that, and reach out to build that network up is so crucial in my mind.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And I think, who getting out there, like, I don't have the right last name. Yeah. I don't know a bunch of people. I was homeschooled. So, like, I didn't even have the...
It was that weird one.
Dude, yeah. Like, I didn't even have the friends from high school, Hey, buddy, what are you doing now? Yeah, that's great. Hey, I was wanting to get into real estate. I just wanted to let some people know. And that's been big, because that's what I hear. They're like, tell everybody. What do you want to do? Tell everybody. Right. So I started telling everybody. You know, it's something Brandon Turner said, and that's where I got it. He's like, you want to get into real estate? Start telling everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, you know, my name's Brandon Turner. You know, hey, yeah, what about that Colts game? You know, but hey, you know, I'm into real estate. Like, I'm looking to buy real estate. You know, like, so if you ever know anybody, think of me. You know, whether you have the money or not. You say those things. People like to help you get to where you are. If people can help point you to your goals, they will. You know, they're like, oh yeah, so hey, I saw a house, dude. I was thinking of you, man. It's over on whatever avenue. Yeah. You should take a look at it. They were cleaning it out. I think that I saw a for sale by owner or something. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I agree. And I think in the world we live in now, there's so much content. Like, you can go, like, you guys have a YouTube page. Yeah. You can go learn how to start that coffee trailer, that coffee business. You know, you can learn from people who have built that up. Mm-hmm. You know, from ground zero, people who made the mistakes. And one of my favorite quotes when it comes to business and to get courage to start something is, I can't remember who said it, but the road to success is paved with failure. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think you have to get out there and don't be afraid to fall on your face. Don't be afraid to fail. You know, you only fail when you quit, you know. Yeah. Albert Einstein had however many hundreds of times he failed, or was it Albert Einstein, or was it James Madison Adams that did the light bulb? I can't remember. Thomas Jefferson. I knew it was one of them. I knew it wasn't Benjamin Franklin.
I know that the last person you said was a real person.
No, I combined two people because I was trying to encapsulate. But anyways, they failed, like, they say 999 times. Yeah. And they're like, man, why didn't you quit? And he's like, I didn't fail 999 times. I just found 999 ways to not make the light bulb. Right. You know, so there's so much stuff out there. So get out there, meet people, go to stuff as best you can. You got kids, you got a life, you got things. But I think what people don't realize is how much time they really do have and how much time is wasted. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the current economy? I like Warren Buffett when he said the best time to get into the stock market is now. Basically, there's not a perfect time, but if you want to enjoy the highs of the market, you have to be in the market. Does that apply to business also? What are your thoughts on, you know, it's a tough economy. Maybe it gets better. Maybe it gets worse. Maybe it stays about the same for a few years. You know, do you have any thoughts on the economy, where you think it'll go? Or, you know, what do you look at when you're looking at opening up new places and stuff like that? You just don't worry about the economy. You just go.
I mean, in a sense, I don't worry about the economy because it goes back to, like, do you see the glass half full or half empty, right? Yeah. So, like, I'm always going to have that mindset to where we're looking for growth. It doesn't matter. You know, the economy is going to grow, and is it going to take some dips and some bumps on the way to growth? Maybe. That's really out of my control, and I'm not really going to spend too much time looking at that. So I grew up in a time where we're riding down the road. My father is, looking at a piece of property. We'll drive by a house or something, and he's always like, man, I wish I'd have brought that property. I almost had the opportunity to buy that, Yeah. So I grew up with that type of mindset to where, like, hey, the worst time was yesterday, the day before. The best time is today. Yeah, like, I'm going all in. Another thing that I can contribute a lot of our success to is, like, we've been at a place where we've lost everything in life and then rebuilt it all. So, like, I'm okay risking, my risk tolerance is a lot more. Yeah. So I just think that the economy that we live in, historically, you look at this chart, 50 years or nothing or something, and it's like this. It might take some dips.
Still go. It consistently grows.
Like, I'm betting on that chart to keep on doing this.
Yeah. I mean, we're betting on America. That's something that me and my father talked about with Smash Mouth Foods. We opened it up in a bad economy shortly thereafter COVID. Like, it was August 2021. Like, half the states were still closed. Lots of restaurants were still not dining in. Everybody's still probably wearing masks. And then we open up this food trailer, and then the economy has kind of consistently gotten worse ever since we opened. But we've actually grown year over year, not by leaps and bounds, but we've grown now compared to then. And then we're holding steady. Even now, after we've leased them out, they're holding steady at what we were doing. And so I like to look back sometimes, and I say, man, if we'd have opened it up 3-4 years before that, back when the economy was booming or whatever, where would we be? Because expendable income, just your go get a cup of coffee money, your go out to eat money and stuff like that has gone way down with people, and credit cards have gone way up, and so they don't have as much, just throwaway money, go out to eat, go buy, go shopping, go on vacation, stuff like that, and we've done well with that. I think honestly, it's not for every business. I wouldn't just blanket say this, but I think it's cool to open up in a bad economy and learn and figure it out. I think where's the good in opening up with an idea and never struggling ever? Right. You just open up and it's just 100 miles an hour, balls to the walls. You're just making money, growing. Yeah. And then what happens when it doesn't? You don't know what to do. And now all of a sudden your company's worth millions of dollars and you don't know what to do because you opened up and it's just been glory, hallelujah since the beginning. Yeah. But having a little bit of hard knocks and going through the stress and the struggles of that, I think helps prepare you.
Yeah.
So the last question I have, if you could sit down with 20-year-old Eric, what would you say to him? Is there any advice that you would give, something you wish you'd have known earlier? What do you think you would say?
That's
kind of a deep question.
Yeah,
a lot of people
it is. We could go,
question,
we could spend a lot of time on that. But to kind of keep it at a high level, I would say one day at a time is exactly that, one day at a time, because it doesn't matter what I've dealt with in my life, whether it's addiction, business, whatever category you want to call it. Sometimes it's really difficult to make yourself slow down and think about the present because you're always thinking about tomorrow or the next business deal or whatnot. And it's so simple. I mean, just like the saying, treat others how you want to be treated. You hear this your entire life, one day at a time. But actually taking the time to slow down, to process what that really means and implementing that action is sometimes more difficult, way more difficult than just saying it. So I'd probably just go back and say, no matter what the day is throwing at you, just, hey, take it 1 second at a time if you need to. And basically I'm just telling myself like, hey, the next step, that's all we're focusing on. The next step. Yeah. Get there, everything else fall into place.
And then if I saw 50-year-old me coming to talk to me, I'd be like, hey, at least I made it to 50-something.
Yeah.
So at least we're good until I get to there. Like, life isn't so bad, at least till I get to there. So I mean, I guess personally, what's next for you guys? Do you and you may be, I know you guys are growing this thing and you've got all kinds of stuff going on and everything, but like, is there a goal or a dream or something like another business or this business or somewhere you'd like to? I mean, I know you have goals. I know you have, and I don't want to get too much into your personal business, but like, is there a target? Is there like either with Grit and Grind or with Eric personally, that you want to grow this thing?
Yeah, I would say to start with, my first goal is how to get you my Amazon hubs so I can get that off of my plate. Yeah. But no, we have goals that we set each year, and I think that are at the top of our vision board for this year is going to be open 30 more Grit and Grind locations. Yeah. Like I said, everything's been very organic up until this point, and we've been doing licensing deals with our brand, which we've just now pivoted to do full franchising. Yeah. So we're going to try to scale 30 new locations, and we're going to roll out a nationwide, marketing campaign, all of that. We're looking to build a flagship headquarters store, for all of our franchise owners, and we're kind of pivoting away from, hey, running a coffee shop and what that's evolved into to now, how can I support my franchise owners, right? Yeah. Like, what does that role look like? And just kind of like grow into it.
Well, and that's something that I love about what you guys do. And it seems to me from the outside looking in, because I haven't been to Grit and Grind in, Mississippi, and obviously Utah's not open, but out there, you got one at 30A, I know, down there in Panama City area. Yeah,
that one didn't really work out too well. Okay. So we kind of pulled back from that area.
But you've got all these different things, and no matter where you've opened up, no matter what you've done with these areas, every single one of them seem to have the same kind of theme that starts with you and Destiny. is that you really get into the community.
Yeah.
So much. It's something I wish I would have done a lot more of with the food trailer that I had, and we did some of, and I enjoyed doing it, is you guys get in there and you're at the baseball games, the football games, the events,
right.
you know, the Chamber of Commerce, you're
that
doing,
networking,
you're
right?
doing the thing. Yeah. But not just you, like that is coming off of you guys, and like, because you're grit and grind. You guys built this, and what it stands for and what people do is going to be, you know, is going to reflect off of you guys, and it does. Like it comes through, because I see it on their Facebook posts, and I see the people and the different events that these different locations go to and all that. So, you know, that's awesome. It's going to be awesome to see everything else that you do. I wanted to give a shout out to their YouTube page, The Grit Behind the Grind. If you want to know more about what they do and how they've done it, and I'm sure they're going to have loads more videos coming out in the future. I'm excited. I need to watch a video on how you do this marketing thing that you're talking about, you're wanting to do, and the franchising, and, you know, what does that look like and how to start that. So maybe one day they'll sit down and do an in-depth video on that, because that's, you know, I've talked to you about that personally. That's a whole nother animal. But, dude, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
It's been fun.
For
Y'all
sure,
have a
dude.
good one. Thanks
Appreciate
for
it,
watching Real Capital Podcast.
Fantastic.
Well, I didn't even get to Seattle, man. I know y'all toured the coffee thing. You'll go up there to meet and greet, or
So yeah, it was all about the coffee industry. Basically, we went up there.
I mean, it's the American coffee capital.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, it does have a coffee corner on every corner, a coffee stand on every corner. But however, what I've learned in the franchising deal, so for me, like as I grow, I need to find partners that I can leverage to have special, you know, pricing on equipment and everything. And basically the espresso machines that we purchased, that's where their headquarters is. So we went up there and do technician training, meet with all of their, you know, corporate people, just form those relationships. So basically we start leveraging those for as we scale.
Did you guys reach out to them for that, or did they reach out to you and say, hey, come on up here one day?
Yeah, we started buying their products first because it's one of the number one products in the coffee industry. And then after we started buying all their products and then put them in all of our locations, like, hey, we should be able to negotiate a better deal now, the amount of money that we're spending. And that's how that conversation went. And then there was like, hey, you should come up and do this whole training thing and all that good stuff. And that's so worked out pretty good.
And y'all stopped in Denver first, right? Didn't you?
Yeah, we went to Denver just to kind of like change planes, but we was in Denver a few weeks ago. It seems like there's been a lot of travel, man.
Y'all done a lot this year, dude.
Like, I asked my wife, I was like, man, wasn't we just here? And then we're flying out to New York this coming week.
What are y'all doing in New York?
We're actually going to speak at a conference.
Oh, yeah, dude, that's awesome.
For some reason, we've become like the go-to people in the mobile coffee industry.
Yeah, no, dude, it's drive. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's like that's this whole thing. I mean, like the drive you guys have, and it's like, I know you're like, well, that was the next step. These are the next steps, but people don't do those steps. They don't do it. They're like, that's enough steps.
Yeah.
And they get bogged down and stuff like that. I mean, like nothing that Grit and Grind has turned into has been an accident from me looking at it from the outside. I mean,
I
things
guess that's
that maybe
just doing it all the time. Like we don't see it that way.
No, you don't.
You know what I mean?
You don't. But it's like everything you're doing is on purpose. Like, but I mean, and that's what I said in the thing. Like, you look at your business through a microscope. Like you guys really do. And that's something I've told you on the phone before. It's like every time that we have a conversation and I'm like, hey, dude, what about this? Yeah. And have you thought about this? And you're like, yes. And this is what I think. And I'm learning more. And I'm talking to somebody on this day about this and that, whether it's about franchising or whatever. And like you seem to have some facet of some idea of like what your plan is or where you
and every second that I wasted talking about it is a second I can have back. Look, I don't want to tell them everything I'm gonna do. I would rather show them everything that I achieved. I don't want to tell them that I got it with no proof. I would rather show them the receipts. I find it funny.